To put it mildly, things have not been going well for British Columbia Premier David Eby and his BC NDP party. Not only are the Conservatives now tied with them in the polls, with the Conservatives having far more momentum than the NDP only have 44% of voters considering voting for them, where the Conservatives have 51%, and they still have a significant chunk undecided on whether or not they will consider voting for the Conservatives. And now the NDP has all of these terrible news stories coming out to get them. They have all the stories from Alberta of BC safe supply drugs making it out into the streets of Calgary and Edmonton and other major cities in Alberta. There's other cities even further out from Alberta in the east where BC safe supply drugs are being sold by drug dealers because they're totally safe, guys, but drug dealers don't see them as any different than the stuff that they already sell. Yes, are they safer because it might have less fentanyl in it? Sure, but when we're using the word safe between street meth and pure uncut government meth, I'm not going to I think it really waters down the term safe to apply it to the situation. And now there's this absolutely crazy story from Bonnie Henry herself, Dr. Bonnie Henry, the chief medical officer of British Columbia, just coming out and just slapping down a proposal on the table saying, how about, just a little bit of an idea. We sell illicit drugs. We sell safe supply drugs in drugstores, gas stations, grocery stores, everywhere. You can get them without prescription and all this stuff. Absolutely pants on head, hair on fire crazy. At the same time, you actually can't say that her idea is that crazy if you live in the NDP's world, because they think decriminalization saves lives. They think safe supply saves people's lives. Safe injection sites save people's lives. So why would expanding safe supply be bad? Well, we're going to answer that question in a little bit here. But now I want to get over to the response that federal Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre had to this crazy situation. I like Pierre Poilievre getting involved right now because if he wants to be an effective prime minister for the whole country, he needs David Eby gone. David Eby is going to hold up his plans to axe the carbon tax across the country. His drug policies are going to be a nightmare for the federal Conservative government to deal with. So it's far better to have John Rustad and the Conservatives running British Columbia before Poilievre moves on to smashing Justin Trudeau and throwing him out of office. But before I get into what Poilievre said, I just want to remind you guys, if you live in BC, make sure to donate to the BC Conservatives. You actually are only allowed to donate a maximum of $1,400, where I know most people aren't going to do that, but that means that the party cannot really rely on big donors because big donors can't be that big. So make sure you donate $100 because you get 75% back on your taxes. They need every dollar they can get in order to print literature, run ads, all that other stuff. I'm going to send in the link to Bruce Banman's donation link below, or just the general link. I'm going to be going out to Abbotsford actually today to go out and help the BC Conservatives try and win this election. It's very winnable, and I'm there to try and swing some of these ridings in the Metro Vancouver sort of donut around there. Anyways, here's what Poilievre was responding to. He first posts a screenshot of a headline from the National Post, an article written by Adam Zivo that reads, BC dodges a bullet by rejecting safe supply of all hard drugs. A report from Dr. Bonnie Henry recommended all illicit drugs be made readily available and sold without prescription. And so Poilievre then responds, and I think this is a very incisive response. He says, the only reason that BC's radical NDP didn't go ahead with the wacko idea to legalize and sell hard drugs everywhere is fear they'll lose the election. If Eby and Trudeau win, there will be tax-funded narcotics everywhere for everyone. I will close the drug dens, ban the drugs, fire the radicals, treat addicts, and bring our loved ones home drug-free. Very good comment. It's not very long, but it gets to the heart of David Eby's strategy on this issue. If David Eby truly disagrees with Bonnie Henry, the woman who he could fire at any given time, he would have fired her a long time ago. He was totally okay with her crazy recommendations on lockdowns, masking, vaccines in the past. He's totally fine with all that. He was totally fine with continuing the mandates under Bonnie Henry's recommendation to keep unvaccinated nurses and doctors from coming back to work. It's the year 2024, and there are, I think, over 2,000 nurses and doctors not allowed to work in British Columbia still. Absolutely insane. You wonder why wait times are spiking all across the province. At the same time, David Eby, and this will be a totally different video I'll make, David Eby and the NDP are now trying to attack the Conservatives for like being bad on the issue of healthcare and supposedly cutting spending when they've never proposed anything close to cutting spending. They're probably going to, in fact, increase spending. The population has gone up so much, the BC healthcare system actually could use a few more dollars here and there. But so when David Eby feigns like shock and horror at what Bonnie Henry has just proposed of selling, meth at a Safeway pharmacy, no, I don't actually see that as legitimate. That's not legitimate shock, because every part of David Eby's drug policy points to doing something like that. Like, he's trying to clean up his act a little bit going into this election. He hasn't walked away from decriminalization, though. He's not walked away from safe supply. He's not walked away from safe injection sites. He's fully on board. The most he's doing to pretend he's moderating a little bit is passing new ordinances saying, guys, please don't use meth on a playground. Please don't use heroin right next to the children's soccer game, which is nothing. That's a nothing policy. One, he's not going to enforce it because he doesn't enforce any of the illegal camping laws that are already on the books. But David Eby's just trying to go around ever so slightly around the edges of his current policy to pretend that he's somehow moderate and he's listening. He's not. If he actually disagreed with what Bonnie Henry said, he would have tossed her out on her butt. She would not have a job, because that is demonstrating that someone seems a little bit, at least in my opinion, mentally unbalanced, that they are going to tell you that, or at least you'd hope they're mentally unbalanced, that they're going to tell you that the way that we save more people is literally just selling hard drugs in grocery stores. And as crazy as that sounds, again, based on the rest of the safe supply and decriminalization views that David Eby has, why is that even a bad idea? Like, I know it's crazy, but why does David Eby think it's crazy? Because in his mind and in his opinion, more safe supply makes more people safe. And right now, you can only get safe supply from specific government-controlled locations. And so why shouldn't they be everywhere? Because what happens if you're not close to a safe supply distributor? You're on another part of the city and you can't get it. It's like 15 blocks away. Why wouldn't you buy it illegally? Or maybe you can't get your fix or whatever. You can't get your safe injection at a safe injection site. Why shouldn't this be offered everywhere? It keeps you far safer rather than having to travel between your house and the small island that gives you your drugs every day. It should be everywhere. Obviously, they shouldn't, but in David Eby's mind, they should be. But here's also, this is something that Anthony Koch posted the other day. I just want to give him credit for having to actually, subjected himself to reading significant portions of what Bonnie Henry was proposing. I know you could say, well, why haven't you read it? Guys, it's insane that you don't have to read it past the headlines of what it's proposing to do. It does not require deep reading. I always get that from like policy wonks who are really into the detailed policy, and they'll like tell me like, hey, why? On page 85, it gets good. If a policy gets good on page 85, it's a bad policy and you're reading into it way too much. But this is the people who worked on this report. It's a little hard to see. I'll just sort of go down name by name. So all these people who are working on this report just define who they are as individuals and, where they were raised and stuff like that. So we have Sarah Towell, white settler residing on territory and raised in territory, because I cannot read whatever native language this is. Dr. Yonabeth Nava de Escalante, first-generation Canadian settler of mixed Latin American, European, and Wayuu ancestry. Kate Jongblood, white occupier. Andre Munro, white settler. Abby Hutchinson, white settler. What else do we have here? Phoenix Beck McGreevy, white settler of mixed European ancestry. Nancy Henderson, white settler of English, Irish, Scottish ancestry. Haley Miller, English, Scottish, and Irish heritage born. At least I give Haley, I give her some credit for not saying white settler or occupier. Dr. Abigail Steinberg, white occupier of mixed European and Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry. Oh, my goodness. I put so much money down on this lady Steinberg here, also hating Israel, because if you're a self-hating white person in Canada who's like upset from even being in the living here, you probably are also a Jewish person who thinks Hamas is right. Like, it's just one of those things. It's a one-to-one transfer from somebody who believes that one thing that's super woke and the other person who believes that other thing that's super woke. But yeah, so David Eby is not having a good time. Let's be very clear. if he's reelected, he can totally do Bonnie Henry's recommendation. Yes, he says he's not going to do it now. She's not fired. If he wins re-election, he 100% pushes something like this because he's never held himself back in the past. And the only factor we have to explain why he's saying no now is the election. So if the election stops being a factor, let's not gamble on the idea that he's just going to walk away from this and say, I already said it's a bad idea. I'm not bringing it back up. He 100% will, or he'll at least do a small pilot project, just a small one. Let's just do it a few London drugs, and then let's just expand it a little bit. And by like 5-6 years' time, it's just absolutely everywhere. So if you live in BC, donate to the BC Conservatives. I'll have a donation link in the description below. Volunteer for them if you can. Talk to your neighbors, your friends. Like, friends do not let friends vote for commies. So make sure you vote for the BC Conservatives, and they do too. And if you don't live in British Columbia, I do have my donation link for my own legal fund in the description of the video below. It's the Give, Send, Go link. Really helps me out if you guys can contribute to that. We have a Chinese billionaire suing us for literally nothing, defamation, but in 2.5 years, he hasn't even shown evidence that anything we said was wrong or defamatory or even damaged him in any way. But so that really helps me out. And then you can sign up onto my campaign organizing list, the one I have for all of Canada. So no matter where you live, go sign up at wyattclaypool.com, and I can keep you in the loop on local races in your area, what I think about them. You can email me at my contact Wyatt at wyattclaypool.com. If you want to know my thoughts on specific races going on in your area, you want me to look at candidates, I'll get back to you, and I'll try and even get back to other people who live in your area, who then I can reach out to and like send some information. So that's kind of what I'm doing with that new list. But again, in BC, donate to the BC Conservatives. You cannot donate that much in BC politics, only $1,400, which means that you can't just get 500 big donors in a room and have them like peel off $4,000 checks like you can do in Alberta and Ontario. And it's mostly a fully funded campaign after that. No, you got to nickel and dime your way to the top, because the most someone can donate is $1,400, which is even less than the federal amounts. This is why I actually advocate for it. And as much as saying get money out of politics is popular, in Canada, we need more money in politics because people care about things that they spend their money on. And in Canada, we have it so that you're artificially capped at caring about politics up to $1,700 federally and only $1,400 provincially. And mark my words, the BC NDP is going to get crazy amounts of in-kind contributions from the unions, from the media, and other activist organizations who are going to spend their own money on just promoting people to get out the vote, but they're going to go out and specifically identify orange and green voters to get out there. So yeah, it's crazy. If you don't want a protester as premier anymore in British Columbia, please go out and vote. If you guys have any more BC-related stories or topics you want me to cover, drop them in the description below. Like this video, obviously subscribe, do all that stuff, comment, all that good stuff. I'm always bad at promoting the little extra features on the videos of like subscribing. I'm not a hustler, as you can tell. Anyways, that's it for me today, guys. Have a good one, and I'll see a bunch of you out in Ontario, in British Columbia, in Abbotsford specifically.